You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
I think that's one of the reasons people get into coaching.
Yeah.
They want to serve. And I know that's also a driver for veterans because we were in the military, and part of that was, we were imbued with a sense of service, not servitude, but service to a higher calling.
Mm-hmm.
And we get out of the military and we feel like that calling has been stripped away. I don't believe it has. It just appears that it has. I'm a big believer that the best way for veterans to continue to serve is to succeed in a big way.
Yeah. Jeff, how would you encourage our listeners to think about what they're already competent in and some of their experiences, and how to maybe capitalize on that, integrate that, use that to their benefit in their coaching world?
First off, there's a couple of things to think about. First is, I believe personally that the experiences we have deserve to be honored because there's lessons we've learned from them. Now, sometimes the lessons, we're not conscious about them. And often the important experiences need to be examined because I suspect there is more than one lesson. And sometimes the lesson changes with time.
Yeah.
And perspective. And so often we have an experience that is profound for us and we take the wrong lessons from it. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is kind of go back and think about what are the things you've experienced that have had an impact on you. And then in addition to whatever lesson you learned, think about what other lessons are there for me to take away?
Yeah.
That's one thing. And then be thinking about what is your area of expertise? What do people come to you about when they struggle? Because often that's where we can help them. And then I would, and here's the question, here's the thing I'd ask you to write down. If you had to put, let's say 10 steps together for somebody to accomplish whatever it is you're good at, what would be those 10 things? And, here's this, the first step they'd have to do is this, and then the next one. So for instance, if I'm thinking about somebody becoming a good speaker, I like to think I'm a good speaker. I train people in it. First things I'd be thinking about is understand what you're passionate about. What have you earned the right to talk about? What has value for people, for your prospective audience? Let me see. How do you generate energy? How do you connect with the room? How can we illustrate the points that you're going to make? And I don't know how many that is, probably 7 or 8. Then what are some openings and closings? And I think the other one is make sure we identify the audience and the purpose. So I would take those and put them into an order that made sense. And then if I was coaching people over, say, 12 weeks, then I would add an introduction and a conclusion section. Now I got my coaching program.
Boom. That was awesome. Those of you that were listening, if you're struggling, if you don't, if you weren't part of a certification that just gifted you and handed you like, here's your 12-step plan or whatever, this is great. This is really, really powerful and a simple way of being able to extract your zone of genius and the things that you're good at to be able to then, teach other people.
Yeah.
I love
that.
It
is, that's just what, again, what would you tell somebody to accomplish what you've accomplished? It is that simple.
Now,
I'd also tell people to video themselves.
So Jeff, how would you, as I'm thinking through the 12-step program, not that kind of 12-step, but.
Hello, Sheri.
Hello, Jeff. I'm
a coach.
That's funny. How would we differentiate a coaching program versus like a how-to consulting, do these 12 steps and you'll get this, but rather have it more of a collaborative approach?
Yeah, that's actually one of the big challenges. It's also one of the big challenges with Dale Carnegie trainers is, we get so excited about what we do, we want to tell people what the answer is. And this is kind of my thought around coaching. If I tell somebody what the answer is, or what I think the answer is, it's still my answer. If I help them discover an answer, that becomes their answer. Mm. And so that's the thing. That's the one of the most challenging things about coaching is so often we think I'm telling someone what to do and then coaching them to do that. That's, in my mind, much more like consulting.
Yeah.
Or training. And those are great things. They're just not coaching. One of the points that I like about high performance coaching is there is a training element. Typically it comes in at the end. Mm-hmm. Now, there's no reason there can't be a training element at the beginning. But most of coaching is about, if we're going to give people information up front, then the subsequent part of the session really ought to be about how they can implement it, not us telling them, helping them discover ways, and getting them to commit to take action on those things that they say they want, and realizing the more questions we ask, the more successful we're going to be. I'm a big believer that questions equal control of the conversation. When we ask a question, people are thinking about the answer. We've directed their thoughts. If we spend our time talking, they can be in the Bahamas for all we know. Mentally. They're smiling and nodding.
I wouldn't mind physically being in the Bahamas, quite frankly.
No kidding.
That's great.
So
yeah. And so as you were talking about that, I was imagining, so for example, like how to work the room. If that's part of the program, mm-hmm. There would be some pretty basic principles that universally would work. But then the questions could be centered around, well, what has worked for you? What fits in your personality that feels genuine to you? At the same time, how do you grow, and what's growing in a way that's still in alignment with who you are? And so there's a lot of those application questions. So here's what we know is true. Now, what does it look like in your life?
Yes. Yeah. And one of the other things to be aware of as we grow is just because something's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's not you.
Yes.
One of the examples I use, and if you're listening to this or watching this, go ahead and cross your arms. And then now, are you would you say the left elbow's on top or the right elbow's on top? And the reason the reason we do this is because this is what's comfortable for us, because we've done it a lot.
Jeff, you and I are opposite.
Okay.
My right hand is over my.
Well, my right hand is over, right? My right hand's on top. My left hand's underneath.
Oh, okay. It just looks opposite because of the way it looks on the screen.
Could be.
We're really the same. We're exactly the same.
Yeah, we're the same. We're the same. You just have a much nicer smile and longer hair. But then I say, okay, so we'll go ahead and uncross your arms and then cross them back the opposite direction, the opposite way.
I have to think about it.
Yeah. People are like, it is funny to watch because people now, how does that feel? Feels weird, different, odd, illegal, immoral, unethical. I cannot believe they actually hire people that do this. What are they thinking? Well, what if your boss came to you and said, look, I'm going to give you another $250,000 a year if you learn to do it this way automatically? Practice. The point is, many of the things that we'll do when we're presenting that we coach people to do, they feel like, oh my gosh, I'd never do that. That's because it's uncomfortable. It's not that it's wrong. And that's the other, and so if we're going to grow, we have to be willing to do the things that are uncomfortable for us until they're no longer uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Assuming they're producing the result we're looking for.
Yes.
If they don't, just because it's uncomfortable, it's not a reason to do it. Is it producing the result we want? If it is, do more of that. If it's not, don't do it.
And I love that you said that's not immoral, illegal, unethical.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great. So what would be some parting words of wisdom for our audience on how they can really harness what they're currently doing or what they were doing if it wasn't coaching, and being able to integrate coaching into that?
A couple of things. One is continue to grow in what you already know, because that will also give you different perspectives on how to teach someone else or how to coach someone else. So continue to grow on what you know. Second, figure out, how would I coach somebody to do what I do? And once you have that, if you've got a, like 10-step, 5-step, 10's not the magic number, it just works well because 12 weeks is the standard package. But if it turns out to be 5 or 7, okay, just tack an intro and a review session on the ends. But figure out, how would you teach somebody to do what you do? And then what are the questions you can ask that are going to help them get there? Be constantly evaluating that. Then, find some people who want to know what you do, offer it to them for free. And to 1 or 2 or 3 people, take them through your process, get their feedback after every session and refine it. In addition, I'd also recommend that you take advantage of we have a coaching mastery discussion forum that is free at coachingmasterycommunity.com. And you can use that. It's a Google Doc. And so it's the process we follow after every session to evaluate how our session went. And I say this as part of the leadership team for Coaching Mastery Community. It's free. And then the great thing is you put your email in there, and when you hit submit, it will send you a copy of what you've done. But you can have that conversation with the person who was in your session. I mean, you're giving it to them for free. Just say, hey, can you take 15 minutes at the end and let's just talk through this?
Yeah.
And so you get their perspective, their insights, and you get it sent to you in an email. And then you get to figure out, okay, what's working, what's not working. And as we continue to learn, as we continue to develop the mastery in what you already know, you're going to find additional ways to help people with that.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.